They placed me near the kitchen. That's where I watched my son get married, catching glimpses through a swinging door while standing beside a tray of shrimp cocktail. I had paid for the wedding. Every chair, every flower, every polished detail. But once the music began and the speeches started, I wasn't part of it. Not even slightly. I smiled, stayed silent, and after the last forkful of cake disappeared, I set everything on fire with a single phone call. Subscribe if this story finds you. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? There was no sign. No name card. No warm welcome. Just a folding chair with a paper napkin tossed across the seat. That was my place. Wedged between stacks of used serving trays and a squeaky cart with a broken wheel that screeched whenever someone pushed it. I stood there blinking hard. The smell of marinara hung thick in the air, sour and heavy, mixing with the steam pouring from the kitchen doors. The ovens radiated heat against my back, and something inside me twisted tight. I glanced down at my dress, soft mauve chiffon hand-stitched. I had spent 3 hours getting my hair done that morning. 3 hours pretending this day would be as meaningful for me as it was for them. But nobody told me. Nobody said. We made other seating arrangements. No one even looked at me when I arrived. Not even Daniel. He was too busy smiling, fixing his cufflinks, letting her mother kiss his cheek like she was the one who raised him. Like she was the one who stayed awake through his night terrors. Like she was the one who worked double shifts when he needed braces. When I couldn't afford both rent and his smile, I gripped my small beige leather handbag, the one he gave me for Mother's Day years ago, back when he still called me Mama. My hands trembled. I felt it in my wrists, a quiet vibration, like electricity trying to escape through my fingertips. The catering manager, a boy barely old enough to shave, smiled awkwardly. They said you were supposed to wait back here, ma'am. The bride didn't want any visual clashes with the theme. I stared at him. Theme. He winced and glanced toward the swinging doors. The silver edge smacked the wall with a sharp bang. Laughter poured in from the reception hall, followed by music swelling through the gap. It's just for aesthetic consistency in the photos, he muttered. I lowered myself into the chair. It creaked. A dark stain marked the floor beneath my feet. Gravy maybe. My shoes stuck slightly when I shifted. I looked at my freshly done soft pink nails, then at the cold chicken breast someone set in front of me on a chipped white plate. The worst part? I didn't say a word. Not one. Because it was his day. Because I told myself, don't ruin this for him. Don't be that mother. Because I had paid for everything and still believed that meant I mattered. I pulled out the church program. Cream cardstock. Elegant cursive. No mention of me anywhere. Her father walked her down the aisle. Her mother gave the first speech. I was just the wallet. The ghost in the kitchen. The woman nobody wanted in the picture. The door swung again. A glimpse of chandeliers. The band tuning up. The first dance. Daniel and Emily spinning beneath warm golden light. He never looked my way. Not once. I pressed a napkin to my lips, pretending to dab away a stain that didn't exist. My eyes burned. I told myself it was the onions. The steam. The heat. Not the betrayal. But it was. And somewhere deep inside something cracked, quiet and thin like glass fracturing. You don't notice it at first, until the pain shatters that I stared at a patch of peeling paint behind a fire extinguisher. I focused so hard I thought I might burn a hole through the wall. That spot became my anchor. The only thing keeping me from falling apart in front of a waiter balancing crab puffs. Because if I started crying, I wasn't sure I'd ever stop. I breathed in. Then again. The chicken on my plate went cold. I didn't touch it. Eventually, dessert arrived. I didn't taste it either. I just stared at its white and gold layers, her colors, her perfect vision. Then I made the call. Short. Clear. No explanations needed. 3 cancellations. The flowers for tomorrow's brunch, the second half of the band's payment, the open bar that was supposed to last until midnight. My voice was steady, controlled, calm. When I hung up, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I felt something new. A spark I hadn't known in years. Power. I looked at my hands. They were still. My heart quiet. A low hum inside me. Like an engine restarting after a long stall. The door swung again, laughter, music, the life I was excluded from. Let them toast without me. I had my own plans now. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I lay on the stiff hotel bed, still wearing my dress, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it might break loose and crash onto my chest. Part of me almost hoped it would. I could still smell kitchen grease in my hair. Expensive rose perfume tangled with sour sweat. Humiliation clinging to my skin like a second layer. Eventually, I kicked off my shoes. My feet were swollen. They had hurt all night, but I hadn't dared take them off. I needed to look presentable, even in the kitchen. Around 3 a.m., I sat up. The digital clock glowed red. My phone buzzed again on the nightstand. I didn't check it. I already knew. Missed calls from Daniel. From Emily. A text from my niece. What happened? Everyone's freaking out. I opened the wedding budget spreadsheet on my tablet. I had tracked every expense for over a year. Every upgrade. Every indulgence Emily requested. Always with that tight smile. Elevated. Margaret, we just want something more elevated. That word wrapped in satin, but cutting like a knife. That's how the invitations became hand calligraphed from a boutique Etsy shop in Vermont. How the venue changed from a simple church hall to a restored barn with chandeliers and antique whiskey barrels. How the open bar grew a custom cocktail menu. How the cake went from 2 tiers to 5. I paid for it all. No one offered to split the cost. Not Daniel. Not her parents. And I never asked. Because I wanted him to have what I never could give when I was raising him. Then I saw them. 2 unauthorized charges. Days before the wedding. A bar tab from a tasting event. A rehearsal dinner upgrade. The same restaurant where they had seated me near the kitchen again. My stomach tightened. My card. Used without permission. Then the Venmo note she sent to a bridesmaid. His mom is covering everything. Might as well go big. Wedding Phoebus. I didn't cry. Not now. I felt nothing. A heavy numbness after too much pain. Like my nerves had folded inward for protection. I turned on the lamp. The light stung my eyes. I walked to the mirror. My reflection startled me. Mascara smudged beneath tired eyes. The softness in my mouth replaced by something hardened. My hair flattened on one side. I looked like someone who had aged 10 years overnight. But then something shifted. I smoothed my hair. Washed my face. Sat at the desk. Opened my email. 3 messages. To the florist. Please cancel Sunday's delivery. The remaining payment is withheld. Thank you. To the band. Due to changes in event scheduling, we will not require the second performance. Please consider the matter closed. To the bar vendor. We are scaling back post-reception services. Cancel the second shift. Do not process the remaining balance. All polite. All professional. All final. It was nearly dawn when I finally pressed send. As the sky outside shifted from deep black to a bruised blue, I closed my tablet, sat on the edge of the bed, and listened to the steady hum of the air conditioner. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I wasn't angry, not yet. But I was finished. Finished being convenient. Finished being the wallet. Finished being the afterthought. Let them sort it out. Let them panic. Let them remember the moment the music stopped, the bar went dry, the flowers never arrived, and wonder why. And maybe, just maybe, they'd remember who made that wedding possible in the first place. The woman in the kitchen. The one they didn't want in the pictures. The music throbbed through the wall like a distant heartbeat. I sat in that folding chair with a plate of cold hors d'oeuvres and a diet soda from the catering cooler, trying not to listen. But I couldn't escape it. Every laugh, every cheer, every clink of glass slipped through the swinging door. A cruel reminder of where I didn't belong. Someone began a toast. A man's voice, probably her father or Daniel's best friend. I leaned back slightly, just enough to glimpse through the crack in the door. There they were, lined beneath that ridiculous floral arch I had paid Dylan for. Gold chairs. Floating candles. A custom neon sign looping the words. The future is forever. I recognized voices even when faces blurred. Emily's mother, Susan, with her signature artificial warmth. Oh my God, Daniel, you are just the sweetest man alive. Emily is so lucky. Laughter. Applause. I froze. At the head table sat Susan, draped in navy chiffon, layered in pearls like old money she didn't actually have. I'd met her only 3 times before the wedding. She never asked about my life. Never thanked me for covering the expenses. Never offered to contribute a single dollar. Beside her sat Emily's father, holding court like a suburban king, laughing loudly. The same man who told me at the rehearsal dinner, "We really admire your perseverance. Raising Daniel alone must have been hard." Perseverance. As if I'd climbed a mountain, not worked endless shifts in scrubs so my son could grow up without wearing hand-me-downs. And there was Daniel. My Daniel. Smiling like he belonged to them. Sitting between her parents like he'd always been theirs. I searched for my own family. My sister Carol, 2 rows back. Cousin Diane beside her. Neither looked toward the kitchen. No one did. I wasn't part of the performance. I was a problem solved with a chair in the back and a door that swung shut. A waiter brushed past me, a young girl, probably a college student. She glanced at my plate and offered an awkward, guilty smile. "Do you want a refill or anything?" I shook my head. "I've fine." But I wasn't. Every inch of me ached, feet, shoulders, jaw clenched so tightly it pulsed behind my eyes. My heart sat heavy in my chest, like something rotten refusing to move. I stared at the plate. 3 olives. A slice of brie. A tiny triangle of toast. I hadn't eaten since morning, but my stomach was a fist and my throat a narrow passage. I thought of the seating chart. Weeks earlier, I'd asked Emily gently, "Have you decided where I'll be sitting?" She smiled tight and bright. "We're still finalizing everything. Don't worry, Margaret. You'll be included." I should have known. I did know. Deep down, I knew I was being managed. Shifted like a prop. Invited for the checkbook. Tolerated for appearances. Never truly wanted. And the worst part? I agreed to everything. I let them shave away my place piece by piece. No speech. No mother-son dance. It would feel awkward, they said. No pre-ceremony photos. No mention in the program. Just a chair in the kitchen. Daniel laughed again. That deep, rumbling laugh he had as a boy when I chased him through the sprinkler in our backyard. The same laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in years. Something rose in my chest. Not grief. Not disappointment. Rage. Quiet. Controlled. Devastating. I stood, walked to the swinging door, placed my hand on its edge, and nudged it open just enough to look through. I met Emily's eyes. She saw me. She knew exactly where I was. She knew what she'd done. And she smiled, not apologetically, not nervously, but calmly, confidently, like I was exactly where I belonged. She turned back to her bridesmaids, tossed her head and laughed. And that's when I understood. This wasn't a mistake. Not an oversight. This was intentional. Planned. Chosen. She didn't want me there. And Daniel had allowed it. Both of them had. And something inside me shifted. Not broken this time. Repositioned. My place in their lives had changed, and I was done pretending not to see it. Let them have their spotlight. Let them sip their champagne. They thought I was invisible. They had no idea what I could take away. The toast began while I still stood by the kitchen door. Someone dimmed the lights in the reception hall. I saw string lights glowing above tables, gold chargers shimmering under candlelight. The microphone squealed once, then her father's voice boomed out like a game show host. "To our daughter Emily and her perfect new husband Daniel." Cheers erupted. I stepped back. Behind me, the kitchen was chaos. Trays clanging, voices rising, a server arguing over a gluten-free plate for table 12. I leaned against the wall. Cold plaster pressed against my back. Garlic and hot oil hung in the air. On the other side of the door, her father continued. "When Emily was little, she said she wanted a fairy tale, a prince, a castle, a happy ending. Well, sweetheart, today you got it." Applause again. My breath caught. He never saw Daniel as a child. Never watched me clean vomit off bathroom floors at 2 a.m. Never saw me sew buttons onto his school uniform. Never drove icy roads to get him to chess tournaments. But today they rewrote the story. And I had been edited out. I looked at my hands. Fingers blotchy. Skin thin. Slight tremor. Cold air from the vent raised goosebumps on my arms. Then Emily's mother took the mic. Her voice syrup-sweet and rehearsed. "We're so grateful to be joined by everyone who loves Emily and Daniel. And to welcome Daniel into our family. He's like a second son to us already. Cheers. Like a second son. Not a word about me. Not a thank you. Not a mention. Not a whisper of acknowledgement. No. This day wouldn't be possible without Margaret. No, we appreciate your generosity." Nothing. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. My feet throbbed, but I refused to sit. Then came the groom's speech. Daniel stepped up to the microphone. Radiant. Confident. Jaw-sharp, suit-tailored, a suit I helped pay for. I had watched him take his first breath in a NICU. Now he stood glowing beneath chandeliers, a stranger. "I just want to thank everyone for being here," he said. His voice deeper than I remembered, polished from practice. "I feel so lucky. Emily, you've made me the happiest man alive. And to your family, thank you for welcoming me like your own. I truly feel at home with you all." My throat closed. "And to everyone who helped make today happen, thank you. This has been the most incredible day of our lives." My name was never spoken. Not once. I had paid for the venue, the catering, the photographer, the DJ, the linens, the neon sign, even the dress Emily wore as she stood there with her hand on his arm. And yet I didn't exist. Servers clapped. Guests cheered. The band resumed. Someone placed a slice of cake in front of me on a plastic plate. Vanilla with raspberry filling. Her favorite. I hated raspberry. Always had that. I stared at the thin gold fork in my hand. My grip steady now. And I remembered Daniel at 10 years old, asking for chocolate cake with sprinkles. I'd worked 2 extra shifts to buy the one he'd pointed at through the bakery window. His eyes had lit up. He hugged me so tight that day I could barely breathe. That boy was gone. In his place stood a man who hadn't even thought to save me a chair. I set the slice of cake aside. I waited until the final desserts were served. Until guests loosened their ties, wiped frosting from their lips, until the music reached that perfect swelling peak. Then I stood, walked out of the kitchen, past the servers, past the bar, and out through a side door. Outside, the air was cool and motionless, the kind of silence that rings softly in your ears. I pulled out my phone. 3 calls, one to the florist, one to the band, one to the bar manager. Polite. Direct. No explanations needed. By the time I stepped back into the hotel, the wheels were already in motion. Tomorrow's brunch canceled. Late night music set removed. Second bartender and custom cocktail menu gone. That I had stayed quiet long enough. Let them enjoy what remained. Let them feel the gap. Let them notice the absence. Let them ask questions. I didn't care if they called me dramatic, petty, or ungrateful. They had already erased me from the story. All I did was turn the page. The hotel room smelled of rose lotion and something faintly metallic. Maybe stress, maybe my own skin. I sat cross-legged on the bed, the comforter still perfectly smooth beneath me, untouched since I checked in. I hadn't cried. Not once. But something inside me had cooled. Not frozen. Frozen things shatter. This was different. I was hardening. Tempered. The sun still hadn't risen. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls. 2 voicemails. A dozen messages. "Daniel. Where are you? Why is the brunch canceled? Mom, seriously, this isn't funny. Emily, I don't understand what's happening. Are you okay? Please respond. This is so childish." I let out a quiet breath of laughter. Just air through my nose. Childish. I opened my banking app again. My fingers moved with the practiced rhythm of someone who had balanced a checkbook every Sunday for 30 years. The charges were still there, unauthorized, shameless. My new daughter-in-law had helped herself to my card for a pre-wedding bar crawl and a spa day with her bridal party. The receipt spelled it out. Champagne bottles, manicures, facials, brunch for 8. No one asked. No one told me. The trust one had carried inside my chest, like an old warm quilt, now felt shredded, as if someone had cut it apart while I slept. I switched to my email. 2 new messages. The florist. We're disappointed by the sudden cancellation, but we understand. As per our agreement, no refunds for late notice. Fine. The band's manager. We were halfway through setup when the cancellation came through. Unusual, but your message was clear. We'll leave the deposit untouched. Also fine. I wasn't doing this for refunds. I was doing it for the invisible woman in the kitchen chair. For the mother erased from her own son's milestone. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since the day before. But the thought of food turned my stomach. Instead, I stood, pulled the stiff curtains open, and watched the sunrise bleed into the sky, orange, then pink, then a pale yellow that made everything feel unreal. And then I remembered the red file folder, tucked away in my dresser drawer at home. Old paperwork. Legal documents. Letters I never threw out. I felt drawn to it, like it had been calling quietly all along. That I packed slowly. Showered. Washed off the perfume and the resentment. Dried my hair. Put on jeans and a button-down shirt that still smelled faintly of lavender detergent. I checked out of the hotel without a word. The drive home was silent except for tires on asphalt and low radio static playing songs I didn't recognize. The kind of drive where your own thoughts grow loud and unavoidable. He didn't mention you. They all saw where you were sitting. No one did anything. When I pulled into my driveway, the roses I'd planted 2 summers ago were in full bloom. I didn't stop to admire them. I went straight inside, to the bedroom, opened the dresser, pulled out the red folder, and sat on the bed. At the bottom of the stack, beneath old insurance papers and photographs I hadn't looked at in years, lay a letter. The envelope corners yellowed. A postmark from Arizona. A date written in my late husband's handwriting, the year he left. I remembered finding it weeks after he died. I hadn't opened it then. It felt like salt in an open wound, like letting him speak from the grave before I was ready to listen. But now, I slid my finger beneath the flap. The paper was thin. His handwriting slanted and familiar. It began simply, "Margaret, I know you never wanted to hear from me again, but I need to tell you something." My pulse quickened. My hands trembled slightly. "I've been carrying a secret, and I can't take it to the grave. You deserve the truth. Daniel isn't biologically yours. I found out years ago. Emily was pregnant when we got together. I thought I could pretend he was mine, but he's not. And neither of us ever told you." I stopped reading. The room tilted for a moment, then steadied. I read the rest anyway. Apologies. Excuses. Regrets. Words that meant nothing now. Daniel. My Daniel. The child of another woman's betrayal. Left at my doorstep like a test I never agreed to take. And I passed. Every scraped knee. Every bedtime story. Every night shift to buy sneakers and school photos. I passed with excellence. And still, I was discarded. Replaced. Erased. But now I had clarity. A truth sharp enough to cut through years of silence. And I was done bleeding. I didn't cry. Even with that letter trembling in my lap. Heavier than anything I had ever held. I didn't shed a single tear. What would be the point? Tears had built Daniel's childhood. Tears paid for his shoes, his asthma medicine, his first car. They soaked my pillow when his father left. And again when Daniel crossed his high school stage without once turning to wave at me. I had run out of tears long ago. What I had now was something else. Not grief. Not heartbreak. Clarity. I walked into the kitchen and poured a cup of coffee. Black. Strong. I sat by the window and watched the neighbor's sprinkler tick, tick, tick across the lawn. It was an ordinary Sunday morning. But I was no longer the woman who paid for someone else's fairy tale and got a folding chair behind the punch bowl in return. I was no longer the woman who would swallow this. Not this. I picked up my phone. First, the florist. My voice calm, polite. I thanked them for understanding. Confirmed again that Sunday's arrangements were cancelled. No explanations. Then the band. Same tone. Same silence. Then the bar service. "Hi, this is Margaret Langley." "Yes, that's correct. I'm calling to cancel the cocktail reception for the post-wedding brunch." "Yes. No issues. Just a change of heart. Thank you." Click. 3 calls. 3 clean cuts. I could have stopped there. But I knew what was coming. I turned off my phone. Turned it back on 5 minutes later. 38 unread messages. 3 voicemails. Daniel, Mom, where are you? The band didn't show. What the hell is going on? Emily's mother. I don't know what's happening, but this is incredibly unprofessional. People are asking questions. Emily, Margaret, seriously. Is this because you were upset about the seating? That's just petty. We had a vision. Don't ruin this. Petty. The word echoed like a brand against skin. And yet, when I closed my eyes, all I saw was Emily smirking across the reception hall. Knowing exactly where I was, knowing exactly what she'd done, knowing I wouldn't fight back. Until now. I turned off the phone again. Let them spiral. Let the questions stack. Let them realize the bar ran dry, because I was the well. That the music stopped because I paid the final note. That the flowers never arrived because the roots were rotten. I cleaned the kitchen. Wiped the counters. Fed the cat. It was the most peaceful I had felt in months. Around noon the doorbell rang. I didn't answer. Let them knock. Let them sit in the heat of their own discomfort. Later that night, I posted one single photo on Facebook. Not the wedding. Not myself. Just a picture of the check I had written. Account number blurred. My signature clear. No caption. No explanation. Just proof. A receipt of sacrifice. Then I logged off. Not just from Facebook, but from guilt. From silence. From pretending this wasn't betrayal. I didn't need their explanations. Their spin. Their excuses. Let them sit in the wreckage. I wasn't saving them from it. The silence afterward was the first sign they were scrambling. No more messages. No more calls. Just a strange stretched quiet. Like the eye of a storm hovering directly over my house. I could feel it. The tension. The uncertainty. They didn't know what I'd do next. Truthfully, neither did I. But it would be my choice. Monday morning, I brewed coffee and sat by the window again. No makeup. No earrings. Just me, the day, and the hum of the refrigerator. Daniel hadn't called since yesterday. His last voicemail had been short, stiff, defensive. You really made a scene, Mom. Everyone's talking. You embarrassed us. I don't know what you were trying to prove, but you crossed a line. I didn't flinch hearing it. Because here's the truth no one likes to admit. You can give someone everything, your time, your money, your love, and still be disposable. You can build their entire world and still be told you don't fit the aesthetic. The betrayal didn't shock me anymore. What shocked me was how little I cared now that I'd stopped begging for their approval. That morning, I deleted his contact name from my phone. Only the name. The number stayed. I didn't need to erase him. I just didn't want his name lighting up my screen like it still belonged there. Around noon I went out. Grocery store. Post office. Small errands. Life went on. In the bakery aisle of all places, I ran into my cousin Diane, who had flown in for the wedding. She smiled when she saw me, but hesitation flickered behind it. Margaret, hey. I nodded. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Are you okay? I met her eyes. Were you okay? I asked gently, watching me sit back there. She flushed. I didn't realize it was on purpose. I thought maybe you. No, I cut in softly. You just didn't think. That's all. A long silence passed. I'm sorry, she said at last. It was wrong. I should have said something. I nodded once. Thank you. She looked relieved, like that small moment of accountability freed her. It didn't free me, but it was a beginning. When I got home, I found a bouquet on my porch. Carnations. Cheap ones. Already wilting. No card. I didn't bring them inside. I carried them straight to the trash bin. Later that evening I checked Facebook. The photo of the check had nearly 100 comments. Old friends. Former co-workers. Neighbors. People I hadn't spoken to in years. Some confused. Some outraged. Most understanding. One comment stood out. This broke my heart, Margaret. I've never related to something so deeply. Thank you for showing us we don't have to stay quiet. That was the start of something new. Not revenge. Not spite. Reclaimed power. Let them rage in group chats. Let them twist their narrative. I wasn't replying. I wasn't explaining. I was choosing silence. not as submission, but as control. And this silence was mine. It began with the drawer. A creaky old one in the guest room dresser. Half stuck, always needing a small hip bump to open. I wasn't searching for anything in particular, just clearing remnants of a life I'd been too tired to sort through. But between yellowed tax returns and expired coupons, I found it again. The red folder. I thought I'd already emptied it. But tucked inside the sleeve, so thin it almost blended into the lining, was another letter. No envelope. Just folded twice. Handwritten. The same slanted handwriting. The same name. My ex-husband's signature stared up at me like a ghost. Michael. Dated 3 days before his death. Margaret. If you're reading this, I guess the first letter reached you. I don't know if you opened it. I hope you did. I won't waste time apologizing again. I need to tell you something more. Something I couldn't carry with me. Something I should have said long ago. Daniel wasn't just someone else's son. He was never meant to be yours at all. When Emily left him at my door, she didn't want to keep him. She was 18. Terrified. She asked me to give him up for adoption. I couldn't. I didn't have the heart. I lied to you. Told you he was ours. That it was a mistake from before we married. You believed me. You raised him. You loved him as if he were flesh of your flesh. But the truth is he wasn't even that. He was a stranger's child. And you made him your world anyway. I don't know how you'll feel reading this, but I hope, God, I hope. You know that whatever else I did wrong, I was right about choosing you. You were the only person strong enough to be his mother. Not by blood, but by who you are. I didn't move. The words settled on my chest like a boulder. Not biologically mine. Not even accidentally mine. Chosen by a man who abandoned both of us. Who handed me a child and walked away as if it were a gift that my breath caught for the first time in days. My knees weakened. I sat on the edge of the bed, letter trembling in my hand. Images flooded my mind. Rocking Daniel to sleep, his tiny fists curled against my shoulder. His first word, truck. The fever that terrified me so badly I drove barefoot to the ER in winter. The science fair volcano that wouldn't erupt. His first heartbreak. His laughter when he got into college. Every moment I thought was ours. I had built my life around that boy. Shaped my identity around being his mother. And now I had to accept a truth no woman should face. He never truly saw me that way. He loved what I provided. Not who I was. Not deeply. If he had, he never would have let her place me in that kitchen. He never would have stayed silent. He never would have let them erase me. I laid the letter on the bed, smoothing it with my palm. It didn't feel like betrayal anymore. It felt like freedom. For 62 years, I had lived as a version of myself that existed only in service to others. Wife. Mother. Provider. Ghost. But now, with that truth in faded ink before me, I saw something new. I had strength I never recognized, because I loved someone completely who never belonged to me. And I never let that stop me. I chose to stay when others ran. I built a family when blood never promised one. And I could choose again. Starting now. I left the letter open on the kitchen table. Didn't hide it. Didn't lock it away. Let it sit visible. A truth I no longer needed to protect myself from. I moved through the house as if seeing it for the first time. Page walls. Faded photos of Daniel's graduation. The dent in the doorframe from when he crashed his bike riding indoors. I used to smile at that dent. Now I only stared. The house was a museum of sacrifices. Every way I had erased myself to keep him whole. The armchair where I nursed him. The sewing kit that hemmed his pants. The pantry still stocked with his favorite cereal. Honey Bunches of Oats. Even though I stopped liking it years ago. And suddenly it hit me. I didn't know my own favorite cereal, that I didn't know the last book I'd read that wasn't about parenting or hospital training. I couldn't remember the last time I spent money on something just for me. I had lived so long as his mother that I forgot how to be a woman. A person. I poured a glass of water and sat on the couch. The silence in the house had changed. It no longer felt lonely. It felt honest. My phone buzzed on the side table. Daniel again. This time a longer message. A softer tone. I don't know what happened. I've been thinking about everything. Emily said she didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry if you felt excluded. If I felt. Not because you excluded me. Not because you left me behind. Still phrased to protect himself. Still centered on his comfort, his distance from blame. I didn't reply. Instead, I picked up the remote and turned on the television. The gentle rhythm of a cooking show filled the room. Calm voices. Measured movements. A steady background hum. My eyes drifted back to the letter on the table. He wasn't mine. Not by blood. Not by law. Yet I had been his, fully, fiercely, until he made it clear I no longer belonged in the life he was building. The ache inside me wasn't for him anymore. It was for the version of myself I had abandoned to raise someone who never once asked, "Are you okay, Mom?" All those years. All those birthdays I made magical. Christmas nights spent wrapping dollar store gifts into perfect shapes. All those days of, "You go sit, I'll do the dishes," that never came, because no one offered. I had been his background music. His safety net. His quiet constant. But not anymore. That evening, I took every framed photo of us down from the walls. Not in anger. Not in spite. Because it was time to stop living in a shrine to a motherhood that demanded I erase myself. I wrapped each frame carefully in old towels. Packed them into a box. Labeled it neatly. Memories. Not obligations. Then I cooked dinner for myself. Just for me. A recipe I'd once seen on a travel show. Lemon butter pasta. Roasted cherry tomatoes, garlic. No chicken nuggets. No boxed mac and cheese. Only what I wanted. I lit a candle. Played soft jazz. Set the table for one. It was quiet. But not empty. It was the sound of reclaiming a self I hadn't realized I'd lost. The invitation list began in silence. No glitter pens. No gold foil. Just a yellow-lined notepad and the scratch of my pen. I wrote names one by one. Not people I had to invite. People I wanted. Claire, my old ER friend who used to sneak coffee into my locker during double shifts. Mr. Henderson, my neighbor who snowblew my driveway before I ever stepped outside. Dina, from the bookstore, who always asked about my week and actually listened. Nurse Janet, who once stayed late on her own birthday to cover a shift for me. None shared my blood. Yet every one of them had seen me in ways my own son never had. And that became the new theme. People who saw me. It wasn't a wedding. Not a holiday. Just a dinner in my home. My food. My table. No folding chairs. No kitchens in the back. I spent the next few days preparing. Not to impress. But because I wanted to. For the first time in years, I wasn't building something for someone else's story. This wasn't about Daniel. Not redemption. Not proving anything. This was about making room for joy mine. I walked the market aisles slowly. Fresh basil. Garlic bulbs. Heirloom tomatoes. No frozen appetizer tras. I bought a new tablecloth, blue with sunflowers. Something I would have loved at 20, before responsibilities stacked like bricks around my life. The morning of the dinner, I woke early. Music played while I cooked. Van Morrison. Stevie Nicks. Nora Jones. The house smelled of garlic, olive oil, lemon zest. Warmth. Effort. Home. The first guest arrived just before 6. Claire, holding a bottle of red wine and a wide smile. "You look amazing, Maggie." I did. Hair loose, gray at the temples. A linen blouse cool against my skin. No sape wear. No mascara ready to run. Just me. The others followed. 6 guests. Laughter at the door. Hugs that lingered. Wine poured without asking. We ate at the table that once held folded laundry and math homework. Now it held passing plates, clinking forks, napkins dabbed mid-laughter. And I laughed too. Really laughed. Stories of terrible first dates. Someone admitting to stealing pens from banks out of spite. Joy moving freely between us. And somewhere between dessert and second helpings it hit me. This was family. Not assigned by blood. Chosen. Intentional. Real. I didn't feel forgotten. I didn't feel managed. I didn't feel small. I felt present. Later, under the string lights on the back porch, Claire raised her glass. "To Margaret," she said. "For reminding us it's never too late to take your seat at the head of your own table." Glasses clinked. I lifted mina. To finally being seen. And I meant every word. The knock came just after noon. Not loud. Not urgent. Just steady. Like he knew I was home and wouldn't leave until I opened the door. I stood barefoot in the hallway, watching his silhouette through the frosted glass. Daniel. A week had passed since the wedding. 7 days of my silence. 7 days of his unraveling. I opened the door slowly. He looked the same, but not really. The suit was gone. The glow gone. Wrinkled t-shirt. Dark circles beneath his eyes. His mouth tightened like he'd rehearsed 10 openings and lost them all at once. Mom. I didn't answer. I stepped aside. He walked in hesitantly. The house was clean. Quiet. Sunlight stretched across the floor. On the mantel, the frames were empty. He noticed immediately. Where are the pictures? I ignored the question. Sit down, I said. Come. Flat. He obeyed, lowering himself into the armchair across from me. Silence stretched. Finally, he sighed and rubbed his forehead. I didn't come to fight. I nodded. Good. I don't understand what happened. 1 minute everything was fine. Then you're canceling things. Posting checks online. That stung. He still didn't ask how I felt. Still didn't say I'm sorry. He wanted explanations. I stood. Walked to the hall closet. Pulled out a box. Set it gently on the coffee table between us. What's this? He asked. Receipts, I said. Every one. Venue deposits. Dress fittings. Catering payments. Even the extra dance floor you wanted. Remember? His eyes scanned the papers. He didn't touch them. Then I placed the second item atop the stack. The letter. His father's handwriting. Unmistakable. I stayed silent while he read. I watched confusion cross his face. Then recognition. Then disbelief. He looked up. Voice cracking. You knew. I do now, I said. He swallowed. So you're angry because I'm not. I'm not angry that you're not biologically mine. I cut in. I'm angry because I raised you. I gave you everything I had. And when the moment came to honor me, to say, this woman made me, you sat down. His gaze dropped. You let them push me into the kitchen. I continued. My voice steady. You watched them humiliate me. And you said nothing. That's what broke me. Not DNA. Not money. He whispered. I didn't think it would matter. Emily said it would look better for the pictures. I didn't think you'd be hurt. A short, cold laugh escaped me. You didn't think. Exactly. I walked to the mantel. Picked up one empty frame. This used to hold your kindergarten graduation photo. Missing tooth. Marker on your shirt. You ran off that stage straight into my arms. I placed the frame face down. I'm done holding on to versions of you that no longer exist. He flinched as if struck. Mom. No, I said firmly. I'm not your backdrop anymore. Not your bank. Not your afterthought. He stared at the floor. Jaw tight. Then a slow nod. I'm sorry, he whispered. Too little. Too late. That I lifted the box. Closed the lid. Handed it to him. These are yours now. Every receipt. Every record. Every reminder of what you chose not to see. He hesitated. Then took it. And I walked him to the door. That he paused at the doorway. Turned back. Looked at me like he was searching for a crack in my resolve. A softness. A hint that maybe the door would open again someday. But it wouldn't. You always said I was your whole world, he murmured. You were, I answered. And now I'm finally my own. Then I closed the door. The house was alive with laughter. Not polite laughter. Not forced smiles. Real laughter. The kind that fills your chest, creases the corners of your eyes, and reminds you that you're still alive. The scent of garlic and rosemary floated through the air. The table was dressed with care. A blue and sunflower yellow cloth, mismatched plates, cloth napkins folded into little fans. A candle flickered at the center. Not to impress, but because I loved the way the flame made the silverware glow. My guests gathered in the living room, wine glasses in hand, trading stories. Mr. Henderson stood in the corner telling the tale of the time. He locked himself out of his house in nothing but his underwear. The room erupted. Claire wiped tears of laughter from her cheeks. And me? I stood barefoot in the kitchen, holding a glass of wine, smiling. Not waiting to be summoned. Not hidden behind a swinging door. Not forgotten. I was the hostess. I was present. I was seen. I plated the final dish, roasted vegetables with thyme and sea salt, and carried it to the table. As I set it down, someone clapped. Chef Margaret strikes again, Claire said with a grin. We sat, passed bowls, poured more wine. Somewhere between second helpings and the last bite of cornbread, Claire lifted her glass once more. I think we should make a toast, she said. Everyone nodded. To what? Dina asked. Claire turned toward me. To choosing yourself, she said. And to knowing when to stop giving to people who only know how to take. Glasses lifted. And this time, I lifted mine fully too. I stood. My hands were steady. My voice did not shake. I looked at every face around that table. People not bound to me by blood or obligation, but by choice, by love, by respect. And I said, to the mothers who stayed quiet for too long, to the women who gave everything and were told it still wasn't enough, to those who were asked to sit in the kitchen after building the damn house. This is for us. May we never sit down again, unless it's at the head of our own table. Glasses clinked. Someone cheered. And I sat. Not in the back. Not out of sight. Not in exile. But in my chair. My place. Daniel never called again. I didn't need him to. The people who mattered were already here. The next morning, I woke to birdsong and sunlight pouring through the window. No regret. No tightness in my chest. Only peace. I brewed coffee and stepped onto the porch, my robe fluttering in the soft breeze. I looked out at my garden. Roses blooming wild and bright. I wasn't someone's backdrop anymore. I was the main character in my own life. And finally, that was enough. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.